It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning in Oakwood Hills. This place was a small, quiet neighborhood where nothing exciting ever seemed to happen. The houses sat in neat rows, the grass was always green, and the birds chirped like they were in a happy little song. Everyone thought it was just a boring, sleepy spot, or at least that's what they all believed. But guess what? Something big was about to shake things up, and nobody saw it coming. Hi there, my name's Jake. I'm your friendly drone flying guy. I'm just a regular kid, 15 years old, with messy brown hair and a big smile. A few weeks ago, I got the coolest birthday present ever, a shiny new drone. It's this little flying machine with a camera on it. I can make it zoom up into the sky and take videos of everything below. I loved sending it buzzing over the tall green trees, filming the little birds hopping around, and even catching shots of the rooftops in our neighborhood. It was so much fun. To me, it was just a simple game, a way to play outside and see the world from way up high. Who wouldn't love that, right? But not everyone thought my drone was fun. Nope, not at all. There was one person who hated it more than anything. Her name was Karen Miller. Oh boy, let me tell you about her. Karen was the kind of lady you'd spot from a mile away. She had short hair that looked like it was glued in place, and she was always standing by her fence, glaring at everyone. Her eyes were sharp, like a hawk waiting to swoop down. If you stepped on her perfect green lawn, oh no, she'd yell at you so loud your ears would ring. She thought she was the boss of the whole neighborhood, and you know what, she kind of was. See, Karen was the queen of the HOA. That's the group that makes all the rules for our neighborhood. They tell you how short your grass has to be, what color your house can be, and even how loud you can play your music. Karen loved those rules. She loved them so much she'd walk around with a little notebook, writing down anything she didn't like. If your dog barked too much, boom, she'd complain. If your mailbox was a tiny bit crooked, yep, she'd tell you to fix it. Everyone was a little scared of her. Behind her back, we all called her HOA Karen. It was our secret nickname, and it fit her perfectly. Now, out of all the people in Oakwood Hills, Karen hated me the most. Me, little old Jake, and why? Because of my drone. She didn't like it one bit. Every time I flew it, she'd come running out of her house, shaking her fist and shouting, "Jake, that thing is spying on me." Spying? Ha, that was so silly. My drone wasn't some secret agent gadget. It was just a toy. I didn't care about her boring backyard with its perfect flowers and ugly old bird bath. Who would want to spy on that? Not me, that's for sure. But Karen didn't believe me. Nope, she thought I was up to something sneaky. Every time she saw my drone buzzing in the sky, her face would turn red and she'd start yelling. "Get that thing away from my house," she'd scream. I'd just laugh and keep flying it because I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was my drone, my fun, and I wasn't hurting anybody. At least, that's what I thought, but oh boy, was I in for a surprise. Here's the thing, something super important that nobody knew. Not Karen, not my friends, not even me at first. My little drone, that buzzing toy I loved so much, it was about to change everything. It was going to flip Karen's whole world upside down like a pancake flipping in a pan. And trust me, it was going to be wild. Are you curious yet? Do you want to know what happens next? Well, don't go anywhere because this story is just getting started. Let me paint you a picture of that Saturday morning. The sun was shining bright, making everything look golden. The air smelled like fresh grass and flowers. I was standing in my front yard holding my drone controller. It's this cool little box with buttons and a screen that shows me what the drone sees. I pressed a button and up it went, the drone lifted off the ground, its tiny propellers spinning fast. It sounded like a big bumblebee buzzing around. I tilted the controls and it zoomed up high over my house, over the trees, over everything. I could see the whole neighborhood on my screen. It was awesome. I smiled big as I watched it fly. The birds scattered when it got close, flapping their wings like they were saying, "Hey, what's that thing?" I giggled and made the drone do a little spin in the air. It was my favorite thing to do on weekends, just me, my drone, and the wide-open sky. What could go wrong? Well, a lot, actually. Because while I was having fun, Karen was watching, and she was not happy. She lived right across the street from me. Her house was perfect, like something out of a picture book. The paint was bright white, the windows sparkled, and her lawn looked like it was cut with scissors. She spent all her time making sure it stayed that way. And me, I guess I messed up her perfect little world with my noisy drone. Every time I flew it, she'd come stomping out her front door, her arms crossed tight. "Jake," she'd yell, "you stop that right now." But I didn't stop. Why should I? I wasn't breaking any rules. That morning, I saw her peeking out her window. Her curtains moved a little and there she was, staring at me with those hawk eyes. I waved at her just to be nice. Big mistake. She threw open her door and marched outside. "Jake," she shouted, her voice loud enough to wake up the whole street. "What do you think you're doing with that thing?" I looked at her and shrugged. "Flying my drone," I said, like it was no big deal, because it was, but to Karen, it was the biggest deal ever. She pointed at the sky where my drone was buzzing. "That's spying," she said again. "You're looking into my yard, I know it." I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they might fall out. "Karen," I said, "it's just a drone. It's not spying on you. I don't care about your yard." But she didn't listen. She never listened. She just kept yelling, her hands on her hips, her face getting redder and redder. "I'm the boss around here," she said, "and I say that drone has to go." I laughed. Boss, sure, she was the HOA queen, but that didn't mean she could tell me what to do all the time. I kept flying my drone, making it dip and swoop just to annoy her a little. Okay, maybe that wasn't the smartest idea, but it was funny. She stomped her foot and glared at me. "You'll be sorry, Jake," she shouted. "I'm going to fix this." I didn't know what she meant by that, but I didn't care. I was too busy having fun. Little did I know something huge was about to happen. My drone wasn't just a toy that day. It was like a superhero waiting to save the day or maybe catch a villain. And Karen, she had no idea what was coming. She thought she was so smart, so in control. But my little buzzing buddy was about to show her she wasn't the queen of everything after all. So what do you think so far? Are you wondering what my drone found? Are you guessing what Karen's big secret might be? Don't go away, because this story is going to get even crazier. That sunny Saturday morning in Oakwood Hills was about to turn into the wildest day ever. Stick around, I promise you won't believe what happens next. So there I was, standing in my front yard on that sunny Saturday morning. My drone was buzzing through the air like a happy little bee. It zoomed high above the houses in Oakwood Hills, and I was grinning from ear to ear. I held my controller tight, watching the screen that showed me everything my drone could see. The trees looked so tiny from up there. The rooftops were like little squares, and the birds flew away when my drone got close. It was the best feeling ever, just me and my toy having fun in the sky. I tilted the controls and made the drone swoop down a little, then back up again. "Cool," I said to myself, laughing as it spun in a circle. I loved how it moved, so fast and free. Nothing could ruin this moment, or so I thought, because right then, out of nowhere, I heard a loud, angry voice. "Jake, get that thing out of my sky right now." Oh no, I knew that voice. It was Karen Miller, HOA Karen, yelling at me again. I looked across the street, and there she was. Karen was stomping across her perfect green yard, her arms waving like she was trying to shoo away a swarm of flies. Her short hair bounced a little with every step, and her face was already turning pink. She looked like a crazy person. I couldn't help it. I rolled my eyes so big I thought they might roll right out of my head. "It's not over your house, Karen," I shouted back. "Chill out." My drone was way up high, nowhere near her boring backyard. Why did she always have to make a big deal out of nothing? But Karen didn't chill out, not even a little bit. Nope. She stopped stomping and stood there, glaring at me with those sharp hawk eyes of hers. Her hands went to her hips and her face got even redder, like a tomato about to burst. "You little brat," she yelled, pointing at me. "I'm calling the cops. That thing is illegal." "Illegal?" I laughed out loud. "A toy drone? Illegal?" That was the silliest thing I'd ever heard. It wasn't a spy plane or some secret weapon. It was just my birthday present, a fun little gadget that flew around and took videos. How could that be against the law? "Karen," I said, still giggling, "it's not illegal, it's just a drone." But she didn't care what I said. She never did. She thought she was the smartest person in the whole neighborhood, the queen of everything. She pulled her phone out of her pocket with a big, dramatic swing of her arm. "I've had enough of you," she shouted. Then she started dialing, her fingers jabbing at the screen like she was mad at it too. I watched her, shaking my head. Was she really doing this? Yep, she was. She put the phone to her ear and started screaming into it. "Hello, 911. Yes, there's a threat to my privacy. This kid has a drone flying over my house. You need to come right now." A threat to her privacy. I almost fell over laughing. My drone wasn't even close to her house. It was buzzing over the trees, far away from her perfect lawn and her ugly old bird bath. I didn't care about her backyard, nobody did. But Karen kept yelling into the phone, her voice getting louder and louder. "He's spying on me," she said. "It's dangerous, hurry." I just stood there, holding my controller, shaking my head. Spying, dangerous. She was acting like I was some big bad guy in a movie, not just a kid with a toy. I decided to ignore her. What else could I do? I looked back at my screen and kept flying my drone. It zoomed up higher, then dipped down a little, making a soft humming sound. I wasn't going to let Karen ruin my fun. She could yell all she wanted. I didn't care. She thought she was so smart, so in charge of everything. She thought she could boss me around just because she was the HOA queen. Well, guess what? I wasn't scared of her, not one bit. But here's a little hint for you. Karen didn't know something big was coming her way. Something huge. She thought she had everything under control, standing there with her phone, calling the cops on me. She thought she was going to win, like always, but oh boy was she wrong. My drone wasn't just a toy that day. It was like a secret weapon waiting to surprise her. She couldn't yell her way out of what was about to happen. Want to know what it was? Don't go anywhere, I'll tell you soon. Let me tell you more about that moment. The sun was still shining bright, making the grass sparkle. A soft wind blew through the trees, rustling the leaves. My drone kept flying, its little propellers spinning fast. I could hear the hum even from way down on the ground. It was peaceful, well, except for Karen. She was still on the phone, packing back and forth in her yard. Yes, officer, she said loudly. He's right across the street. You need to stop him. She pointed at me again like I was some criminal. I just waved at her with a big grin. That made her even madder. Jake, she shouted, hanging up the phone. You're in big trouble now. The cops are coming and they'll take that stupid drone away. I shrugged. Okay, Karen, I said, we'll see. I wasn't worried. Why should I be? I wasn't doing anything wrong. My drone was just flying around, minding its own business. But Karen acted like it was the end of the world. She crossed her arms and stared at me, her lips pressed tight together. She looked so sure of herself, like she'd already won. I kept flying my drone, making it do little tricks in the air. Up, down, side to side, it was awesome. Every time it moved, Karen's eyes followed it. She didn't like that one bit. You think you're so clever, don't you? She said, her voice all mean and sharp. Well, you won't be laughing soon. I didn't say anything back. I just kept grinning because I knew something she didn't. Not the big secret yet. I didn't even know that part myself right then. But I knew she was being silly. Calling the cops over a drone, that was nuts. The neighborhood was quiet, except for Karen's yelling. A few people peeked out their windows, wondering what was going on. Mr. Thompson next door opened his front door and looked at us. Everything okay? He called. Karen spun around and pointed at me. No, she said, this kid is breaking the rules. Mr. Thompson scratched his head and went back inside. He didn't want to deal with her. Nobody did. That's how Karen was, always making a fuss, always trying to be the boss. I watched her stomp around some more, her phone still in her hand. She kept muttering to herself, saying stuff like, he'll learn his lesson and I'm in charge here. I just kept flying my drone, letting it buzz through the sky. The screen on my controller showed me everything, the trees, the houses, the street below. It was so cool. I didn't care what Karen said. She could call the cops, the president, or even the moon. I wasn't going to stop. But here's the thing. While Karen was busy yelling and waving her arms, something was already happening, something she didn't see coming. My drone was up there doing its thing and it had already seen something big. Not right then, but earlier that week. I didn't know it yet, but that little toy was about to turn everything upside down. Karen thought she was so smart, calling the cops on me. She thought she was going to get me in trouble, but oh no, Karen, you're the one who's in for a surprise. The tension was building, even if I didn't feel it yet. Karen stood there waiting for the cops, thinking she'd won. I stood there, flying my drone, thinking she was just being her usual grumpy self. The sun kept shining, the birds kept chirping, and the neighborhood stayed quiet except for us. It was like a showdown in one of those old cowboy movies, but instead of guns, it was me with my drone and Karen with her phone. Who would win? She thought it was her. I thought it didn't matter. But soon we'd both find out the truth. So what do you think? Was Karen right to call the cops, or was she about to get a big shock? Stick around, because this story is about to get wild. Something big was coming and Karen couldn't yell her way out of it. My drone was ready to change everything. So there I was, standing in my yard, still holding my drone controller. My little flying buddy was buzzing high above the houses, and I was watching it on the screen. Karen had just called the cops on me, yelling about how my drone was illegal and spying. I thought she was being her usual grumpy self, making a big fuss over nothing. But then a few minutes later, I saw something down the street. Flashing lights, red and blue twirling in the sunshine. Yep, the cops were here. A police car rolled up and stopped right in front of Karen's house. My stomach did a little flip. Oh, was this really happening? Karen was standing by her mailbox, her arms crossed tight. She had this big smirk on her face like she'd just won $1 million in the lottery. "See, Jake," she shouted across the street, pointing at me with her sharp finger. "You're in trouble now. I told you I'd fix this." Her voice was loud and proud, like she was the queen of the world. I groaned and rolled my eyes. Great. Was I really going to get busted for flying my drone? It was just a toy. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, but those flashing lights made me a little nervous. What if Karen was right? What if the cops took my drone away? The two officers stepped out of the car. They were tall and serious, wearing dark uniforms with shiny badges. One had a notepad in his hand and the other was looking around, his eyes squinting in the sun. I watched them, my heart beating a little faster. "Okay," I whispered to myself, "maybe this is a big deal." Karen kept smirking, nodding her head like she'd planned it all. She thought she'd won. She thought the cops were here to yell at me, maybe even take me away in handcuffs. Ha. That would have been crazy, right? I mean, it's just a drone. But then something weird happened, really weird. The cops didn't walk toward me, nope, they didn't even look my way. Instead, they turned and started walking straight toward Karen's house. My jaw dropped. What? Karen's smirk disappeared fast, like someone had wiped it off with a big eraser. "Wait, what?" she sputtered, her voice all shaky now. She took a step back, her eyes wide. "I called you," she yelled at the officers. "He's the problem, that kid with the drone." She pointed at me again, her arms swinging wild. But the cops didn't listen. They just kept walking right up to her front door. Boom, 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 they knocked hard like they meant business. I stood there totally confused. My drone was still in the air, but I lowered it a little, letting it hover above my yard. I couldn't take my eyes off what was happening. Karen was freaking out now, waving her hands like a bird flapping its wings. "No, no, no," she said. "You've got it all wrong. I'm the one who called. He's the bad guy." But the officers didn't even turn around. One of them knocked again, louder this time. The other one stood there looking at Karen with a face that said, "Be quiet, lady." I was hooked. What was going on? Why were they at her house and not mine? I scratched my head, trying to figure it out. Karen had called the cops on me, right? So why weren't they coming over here to talk to me? Why were they knocking on her door instead? It didn't make any sense. I looked at my drone controller, then back at Karen. She was still yelling, her face turning red again. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "I'm the victim here. That drone is spying on me." But the cops didn't care. They just waited by her door, calm and quiet. Something big was happening and I didn't know what it was yet, but I was starting to get excited. This was getting good. Here's a tiny clue for you. My drone had caught something on camera earlier that week. Something sneaky. Something Karen didn't want anyone to see. Can you guess what it was? Don't worry, I'll spill the beans soon. But right then, I didn't even know about it myself. I was just a kid standing in my yard watching this crazy show unfold. And trust me, it was about to get crazier. Let me tell you more about that moment. The sun was still shining bright, making the police cars' lights flash even brighter. The neighborhood was super quiet, except for Karen's yelling. A few neighbors started peeking out their windows, their curtains moving just a little. Mr. Thompson from next door stepped onto his porch, scratching his bald head. "What's all this noise?" he called out. Karen spun around and pointed at me again. It's him, she said. He's breaking the rules with that stupid drone. Mr. Thompson looked at me, then at the cops, then shrugged and went back inside. He didn't want to get involved. Smart guy. I kept watching, my drone humming softly above me. The officers were still at Karen's door waiting. She stomped over to them, her hands on her hips. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "I called you about that kid. Why are you at my house?" One of the officers finally turned to her. He was tall, with a deep voice. "Ma'am," he said, "we need to talk to you. Can you open the door?" Karen's mouth opened, then closed, like a fish out of water. "Me," she said. "Why me? I didn't do anything." But the officer didn't answer. He just knocked again, louder this time. I couldn't believe it. My heart was racing now, not because I was scared, but because I was so curious. The cops weren't here for me, they were here for Karen. But why? What did she do? I looked at my drone, then at her house, then back at my drone. Something clicked in my brain. Wait a minute, had my drone seen something? I'd been flying it all week, zooming around the neighborhood, taking videos of random stuff. Birds, trees, the street, nothing special, right? But maybe, just maybe, it had caught something big, something Karen didn't want anyone to know about. I started thinking back. A few days ago, I'd been testing my drone's camera. I made it zoom in close on stuff just for fun. I filmed the tops of houses, a squirrel running up a tree, even a car driving by. And yeah, I'd flown it near Karen's house, not over it, but close. I didn't think much of it then. Her backyard was boring, flowers, a birdbath, her garage with the door half open. Wait, her garage. I remembered seeing boxes in there, lots of them stacked up high. I didn't care at the time, it just looked like junk. But now, with the cops at her door, I started to wonder. What was in those boxes? Was it important? Karen was still arguing with the officers. "This is a mistake," she said, her voice all high and squeaky. "I'm the HOA president. I don't break rules, I make them." The tall officer looked at her and said, "Ma'am, please step aside. We need to check something." "Check something?" My eyes got wide. "Check what?" Karen's face went pale, like she'd seen a ghost. She stopped yelling for a second, just staring at the cops. Then she started up again. "You can't do this," she said. "I'll call your boss, I'll sue you." But the officers didn't budge. They were serious, and they weren't leaving. I lowered my drone all the way down now, letting it land softly in the grass. I wanted to focus on what was happening. The neighbors were watching more now, curtains were wide open, and a few people even stepped outside. Mrs. Lopez from down the street whispered to her husband, "What's Karen done now?" I heard it and grinned. Yeah, what had she done? This was getting juicy. The cops weren't here for my drone, that much was clear. They were here for Karen, and she didn't like it one bit. I took a step closer, still holding my controller. The suspense was killing me. Karen kept talking, her voice getting louder and louder. "I'm innocent," she said. "That kid's the one you should arrest." She pointed at me again, but the cops didn't even glance my way. They were focused on her house, her door, her everything. I started to feel a little proud. Maybe my drone had done something cool without me even knowing it. Maybe it was the hero of this story. So what do you think? Why were the cops at Karen's house? What did my drone see? The answers are coming, and they're going to be wild. Stick around, this is just the start of the big surprises. The cops kept knocking on Karen's door, boom, boom, boom. They weren't giving up. Karen was losing it now, yelling louder than ever. "This is ridiculous," she shouted, her voice all squeaky and mad. "I'm the victim here, you should be arresting that kid." She pointed at me again, her finger shaking. But the cops didn't look at me. They just stood there waiting. That's when one officer, a big guy with a deep voice, turned to her. He looked serious and said, "Ma'am, we're not here about a drone. We're here about your garage." Karen's face went pale, like all the color drained out of it. "Garage? What garage?" She blinked fast, her mouth opening and closing like she didn't know what to say. I stood there holding my drone controller, totally confused. Garage? What did her garage have to do with anything? Karen had called the cops on me because of my drone, right? So why were they talking about her garage? My brain was spinning, but then I got a wild idea. I couldn't resist, I had to know more. I ran across the street, my sneakers slapping the pavement, still holding my controller tight. "Wait a sec," I said, my voice all excited. "I've got something to show you." I stopped next to the cops and turned on my drone's screen. "Look at this," I said, holding it up so they could see. I started flipping through the videos I'd recorded a few days ago. I'd been playing with the zoom lens, just messing around for fun. I zoomed in on trees, birds, and even some houses. Nothing big, just silly stuff. But then I remembered something. I'd flown my drone near Karen's backyard, not over it, but close. And I'd caught something on camera by accident. I found the video and pressed play. There it was, her garage door cracked open just a little. And inside, boxes, tons of boxes stacked up high. But these weren't normal boxes. Oh no, I zoomed in closer on the video and my eyes got huge. There were TVs in there, big shiny ones, and bikes all shiny and new. Wait a minute, I saw a lawnmower too, a red one I knew from somewhere. It hit me like a lightning bolt. That was my buddy Tim's lawnmower. He'd been mad last week because someone stole it from his yard. I gasped. "No way," I said out loud. Karen's garage was full of stolen stuff. HOA Karen wasn't just a mean lady who yelled at everyone, she was a thief. "Check this out," I said again, shoving the screen toward the cops. Their eyes went wide, like they couldn't believe it. The tall officer leaned in close, watching the video. "Well, I'll be," he muttered. Karen froze, her hands dropping to her sides. Then she exploded. "That's fake," she screamed, her voice so loud it hurt my ears. "He's lying, that's not real." She lunged toward me, trying to grab the controller, but the other officer stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, calm down," he said, holding up a hand. But it was too late. The evidence was right there, buzzing on my little drone. I couldn't stop grinning. My toy had caught her red-handed. Karen wasn't the boss anymore. She was in big, big trouble. The cops looked at each other, then at her. "Open the garage," the tall one said. Karen shook her head fast. "No, you can't," she yelled. But they weren't asking, they were telling. The truth was out, and there was no hiding it now. The cops didn't mess around. After they saw my drone video, they marched right over to Karen's garage. "Open it," the tall officer said, his voice firm. Karen shook her head fast. "No way," she yelled. But the cops weren't asking, they were telling. One of them pulled up the garage door and wow, it was packed. Boxes were stacked all the way to the ceiling, full of stolen stuff from our neighborhood. There were TVs, bikes, toys, and even that red lawnmower my buddy Tim lost. It was like a secret treasure cave, but for a thief. Karen freaked out. She turned and tried to run, her sneakers squeaking on the driveway. "Stop her," the other officer shouted. They grabbed her quick, holding her arms tight. "You can't do this," she shrieked, twisting and kicking. "I'm in charge here, I'm the HOA queen." But the cops didn't care. They put shiny handcuffs on her wrists. Click, click. "Not anymore, Karen," I said under my breath, grinning big. She wasn't the boss now, she was caught. Neighbors started coming out of their houses, peeking around corners and whispering to each other. "What's happening?" Mrs. Lopez asked, her eyes wide. "Karen's a thief," Mr. Thompson said, pointing at the garage. Turns out stuff had been disappearing for months: bikes, tools, even a barbecue grill. Nobody ever thought it was Karen, the HOA lady who loved rules. But there it was, all her sneaky secrets spilling out for everyone to see. I just stood there with my drone, feeling super proud. The tall cop walked over to me and smiled. "Good work, kid," he said, patting my shoulder. This footage cracked the case wide open. I beamed. My little drone had saved the day. As the cops hauled Karen to their car, she glared at me one last time, her face all red and mad. I waved at her, nice and slow. "Guess my drone wasn't the problem after all, huh?" I said, loud enough for her to hear. She huffed and looked away as they pushed her into the back seat. Slam, the door shut, and off she went. The neighborhood was buzzing now, everyone talking about how Karen got caught. My drone wasn't just a toy, it was a hero. And me, I felt like a detective who solved a big mystery. Justice was served and it felt awesome. And that's how a regular kid like me, just playing with a drone, took down the neighborhood bully. Can you believe it? One minute I was flying my little toy in the sky, having fun on a sunny day. The next minute I was helping the cops catch Karen, the mean HOA queen who thought she ruled everything. It's so funny when you think about it. Karen was always yelling at people, telling us what to do, acting like she was the biggest, smartest person around. She thought she could boss everyone forever and never get caught. But guess what? She was wrong, super wrong. Sometimes the smallest things can make the biggest changes. My drone was just a buzzing toy, something I got for my birthday to play with. It wasn't big or fancy. It didn't look important. But that little drone brought Karen's biggest secrets crashing down like a tower of blocks falling over. All her sneaky stealing, all her mean rules, they couldn't hide anymore. It's wild to think about, right? One tiny thing can flip everything upside down and show the truth to everyone. So what do you think about that? Have you ever seen something like this happen? Maybe you know someone who acts all big and tough, like they're better than everyone else. Maybe they boss you around or make you feel small. And then bam, something happens and you find out they're not so great after all. Maybe you've been the one who surprised people. Ever had someone think you couldn't do much, but then you proved them wrong? I'd love to hear your stories. Tell me below in the comments. I bet you've got some good ones. That's what happened with me and Karen. She thought I was just a silly kid with a noisy drone. She called me a brat and said I was trouble. She never thought I could do anything big. But my drone showed her up. It caught her stealing, and now everyone knows she's not the queen she pretended to be. It makes me smile to think about it. Sometimes the people who look weak or small, like me with my toy, end up being the strongest ones in the end. Here's a cool thing to think about. Next time you see a drone buzzing in the sky, don't just think it's spying or being annoying. Maybe it's doing something awesome. Maybe it's saving the day like mine did, or maybe it's just a kid having fun like I was. You never know what's really going on until you look closer. That's what I learned from all this. Things aren't always what they seem, and surprises can come from anywhere, even a little flying toy. Let me tell you a quick story to make you think. Imagine a tiny ant walking across your yard. It's so small you could step on it without even noticing. But that ant can carry stuff way bigger than itself, like a crumb or a leaf. It's super strong even though it's tiny. People might laugh at it and say, "Oh, it's just an ant." But that ant keeps going, doing its job, and it doesn't care what anyone thinks. That's kind of like me and my drone. Karen laughed at me, but I ended up being the one who stopped her. Small things can be mighty, remember that. What about you? Have you ever felt like that little ant? Maybe someone said you couldn't do something because you're too young or too small. Maybe they didn't think you were important, but then you showed them. Maybe you scored a goal in soccer when no one thought you could, or maybe you helped a friend when they were sad and it made a big difference. Those moments are special. They show that you don't have to be big or loud to matter. You just have to keep going, like that ant, or like me with my drone. Karen's gone now, hauled away by the cops, and the neighborhood feels different. People aren't scared of her anymore. They're talking and laughing, happy that the truth came out. And me, I'm still flying my drone, buzzing it over the trees, watching the birds scatter. But now when I fly it, I feel a little prouder. I know it's not just a toy, it's a hero. It helped fix things, and that's pretty cool. So here's my big thought for you. Don't ever think you're too small to make a difference. You don't need to be the loudest or the strongest. You don't need to be the boss of everything like Karen tried to be. Sometimes all it takes is one little thing, like a kind word, a smart idea, or even a buzzing drone to change the world around you. Keep being you and don't let anyone tell you you're not enough, because you are. You might just be the one who saves the day, and that's the best feeling ever. What do you think? Tell me below. Have you ever surprised someone or seen a small thing do something big? And hey, keep an eye out for drones. They might be up to something amazing. See you next time.